Hello everyone, thank you for joining us in this edition of The Insight. I am Babla Jonathan. We continue analyzing issues concerning the post-election tension in the Republic of Cameroon. The political climate in Cameroon remains quite uncertain, volatile following the protests that erupted after the Constitutional Council proclaimed the official results of the October 12th presidential election, with President Paul Biya taking the lead with a little above 53% of the vote, and Issa Chiruma Bakari, candidate of the Cameroon National Salvation Front's political party, claiming his victory and basing his argument on the results, or better still, the return report that he received from the different polling stations across the country. And he continues insisting that he won the election. And there are efforts going on at the international level, at the national level, to restore what is qualified as the stolen victory of Issa Chiruma Bakari, to restore the truth of the ballot box, to restore, of course, peace and normalcy across the country, because as of now, the situation remains quite volatile and uncertain. There is still uncertainty, though some Cameroonians, notably those close to the ruling party, close to the regime in power, are saying that it is time to turn the page and look forward and work together, with the President of the Republic in one of his recent messages on social media calling on Cameroonians to come together to work for the nation, to come together to build a better republic of Cameroon. But civil society leaders, critics, observers are questioning how Cameroonians can come together in a context of allegations of unjust treatment of Cameroonians. Many of them, hundreds of them, arrested according to legal minds, illegally, unlawfully, and detained in different incarceration centers across the country. Some have already been set free after Issa Chiruma Bakari gave an ultimatum of 48 hours on the government to free all the persons arrested in the context of the post-election protest. But there are still some who are in detention today, and some are facing prosecution before the military courts in the country, and this is condemned. This is criticized by right defenders who are calling on the government to do what is right, to respect the laws of the land, to respect international laws guaranteeing the right, the civil and political rights of citizens, laws duly signed and ratified by Cameroon. In the meantime, there is still tension. Now, we are analyzing all this. Our guest today is Professor Lilian ATANGA, and she is the chairperson of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations. She is an associate professor of gender and discourse studies, formerly of the Department of African Studies at the University of Chang, the University of Bamenda, and Fulbright scholar at the University of Florida, United States of America. She is currently a senior research fellow at the University of the Free State, Bloemfontein, South Africa, since obtaining a PhD in linguistics from Lancaster University in the United Kingdom. She has researched on language, gender, politics, and the media in African context. She has published books, chapters in edited volumes, and academic articles in high-impact journals and encyclopedias. She co-authored the book Legalization of Human Rights in Africa, the Institutionalization of Laws Prohibiting State-Sanctioned Violence and Torture. And Professor Lilian ATANGA is joining us from Florida in the United States of America. Prof, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Right, we are happy to have you. It's a pleasure for us having you in this edition of the program.
Thank you.
Right,
it's a pleasure.
Let's have your perspective, your analysis of the current socio-political situation of your home country, Cameroon.
Well, the government of Cameroon keeps making one mistake after another by using force and, in quotes, legality to institutionalize some kind of reign of terror within the country. For the past over 4 decades, over 5 decades, knowing Biya as a political leader in Cameroon, Cameroonians have not really had the opportunity to have the kind of government they want. There's been a farce of a democracy. Actually, we can say Cameroon has never really experienced democracy, because in the days of Ahidjo will win elections 99.9%. Biya came and in the name of democracy wins elections 50, 60, 70%, just to give a little margin to the opposition party. But we know that real results have never happened in Cameroon. Unfortunately for the government of Cameroon, technological advancements are making media and communication more accessible to the common people to know what they do and what others are doing around it. And in these particular elections, media and technological advances highlighted and outlined a lot of inconsistencies that have happened in the past, including as recently as 2018. And the government of Cameroon now has to grapple with the truth, and in trying to keep itself in place, it blatantly lied that Paul Biya, over 92 years old, won the elections. And of course, with such a lie, when people know the truth, when they were present for the truth, when they are the truth, they contested the elections. Violence becomes an option. Well, they went out to the streets to protest non-violently, but then Cameroon, you know how it acts, with heavy-handedness, killed several people. There are 2 debates that are going out there. One debate, power has to be met with power. Iron has to be met with iron. And another debate, no. Even if iron meets with iron, at the end of the day, there has to be dialogue. The truth is, like I said the other day, the Cameroonian government uses the philosophy of Le chien aboie, le caravan passe. The dog is barking, but we keep doing what we are doing. They don't really care about the Cameroonian people. That is why they cannot listen to the Cameroonian people. That's why they are ready to shoot and kill and imprison every voice out there that is talking. But this cannot end that way. The legal, as they claim, cannot be legitimate. The legitimate government of the people has to rule. And I am on the side of the people that are non-violent. And until the day that there will be an honest and a genuine conversation between the people of Cameroon and the government of Cameroon, whoever that government is, I don't see peace. Even if they fight, even if there is an outright war like it was in the Anglophone region, and it's spread throughout Cameroon, and I'm seeing images and videos of people preparing for war from the north, from the east, from the west, I still think that dialogue is the final answer.
Right, Prof. Before we go further to talk more about the call for an honest dialogue and, of course, restraint amid the post-election tensions in Cameroon, the call coming from the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, which you chair. Let me get this clear. Why do you refer to the results of the October 12 presidential election proclaimed by the Constitutional Council as a lie?
Okay, we followed up the elections on a minute-by-minute basis, and I have this really fun video that went viral where people were counting the results. Let's take the Northwest, for example. Even a baby will know that for 9 years, a people who have been fighting against the regime, a people that have had mass exodus, mass internal displacements, vote 86% for Biya. How can one explain that people vote for their oppressor? How can we explain that you have 4,000 people in a polling station that we barely know has less than 200 inhabitants? As indigenes, we know we are less than 200 inhabitants within that region. And you're giving numbers like 2,000, 4,000, 6,000. Those are blatant lies. That is not a possibility. So the results are not right. And even the Biya government has leaked audios and videos that attest to them forging the results. Aside the citizenship observation movements that have the real results at hand, but do not have the opportunity to present the results. And for the Biya government to escape the farce of presenting rigged results, they declare the results by regions, not by division or subdivision. Because if it's by region, it's difficult to know that Bafut voted 50,000 people when actually there are less than 30,000 people in Bafut, for example.
Looking at what you say now, even though the law says that what comes out of the Constitutional Council is final, you can appeal the decision of the Constitutional Council. How do you think the people can go about the struggle for what is referred to as the truth of the ballot box, the struggle for change in Cameroon?
Okay, like I said, there are two groups of people, and I do respect Chiroma for his restraint. He's called for non-violent street demonstrations locally. When I say locally, I mean within the territory of Cameroon against the result. The legitimacy of the ballot, the people still believe in their vote. They still believe in change. They do not want to vote a 92-year-old president whose immediate entourage even stops the CRTV from filming him because he cannot walk. They are ashamed to present that president in public. There is a need for there to be peace in Cameroon. The Cameroonian people are tired. They are dying and they are tired. Calling for violence only exacerbates that pain. We believe that a legitimate, honest dialogue, when we say honest, we mean a dialogue that is multi-stakeholder. The stakes of the government, the current government, or the fake government of Cameroon that is ruling, the president-elect, the legitimate president-elect, Issa Chiroma, the people of Cameroon, and an international mediator with the African Union, the United Nations, other non-governmental international organizations that are still in dialogue and negotiations, civil society actors, community leaders, church leaders, leaders come together and sit on the desk and determine, okay, we have suffered for over 50 years in this country under the rule of Biya and his cohort. What do we really want? How can we negotiate a peaceful exit? We are ready to pardon Biya to exit peacefully if he will liberate our country. There was a point we wanted him dead, but now we are ready to negotiate his peaceful exit, a peaceful transition into a new Cameroon. Cameroonians are ashamed to call themselves Cameroonians. But with that, it will set a precedent in Africa. Africa is boiling with all dictators who don't want to leave. Let Cameroon be that country that will set that pace, that precedent of a peaceful transition of a dictator who says, okay, I'm ready to free my country. And a legal, a legitimate and honest dialogue will happen. Not the sham of national dialogue of 2019, not the dialogue of 2023 that Cameroon reached halfway with the Anglophones and abandoned and claimed they never went into a dialogue, but something that different stakeholders will be held accountable and they cannot back out and say, oh no, we did not commission a dialogue. No. We need a dialogue where each stakeholder, including the current ruling team in Cameroon, will be held accountable and they cannot back out. And that dialogue can only happen if there are international stakeholders who have leverage on Cameroon.
Right. So, as you rightly said, Prof, I think that it is not, it may not be acceptable or may be considered as an attack on the personality of the President of the Republic if anyone wishes him death, and I think that that's not the focus. Now, as you indicated, the focus is for the country to be able to move forward, the country to be liberated from what is today qualified as a yoke of poverty, yoke of hardship, yoke of misery, yoke of all kinds of socio-economic, political and security problems plaguing the nation from north to south and east to west. Now, I want you to tell us a little more about the call for an honest dialogue. This is the call of the Cameroon, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations. An honest dialogue. Why do you insist on that word, honest?
Again, I'll go back to 2019. Cameroon staged what it called a major national dialogue at the heart of the Anglophone conflict, but then the dialogue was not honest in that the Anglophone conflict was not prioritized. For a dialogue to be honest, there has to be truth. That truth meant acknowledging every stakeholder, acknowledging the people who are suffering, bringing in the voices, the different voices, authentically, of the people involved in the conflict that is ensuing. Whether that conflict is armed or non-armed conflict, it involves that. In 2019, the resolutions of that dialogue were already designed before the end of that dialogue. The outcome of the dialogue was determined before the dialogue. The key stakeholders of that dialogue were not invited. And even those that were invited saw it as a trap because there was no accountability, there was no security, and there was nothing to guarantee their freedom and their security. When we say honest, the government of Cameroon can say, okay, we want to liberate this country. We want genuine peace. And genuine peace cannot go without genuine justice. Okay, the Constitutional Council has declared Biya a winner in these elections, but we want to move forward. They approach the African Union or the United Nations or any organization that has been known for conflict resolution, like Humanitarian Dialogue of the Swiss, which they tried to work with before, but eventually turned them down. And even organizations like the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation, which has been working tooth and nail with different organizations to bring cohesion and say, we want to talk with the people of Cameroon. How can you help us? Who do we need on the table? Where do we sit to talk? And we invite these different stakeholders. We co-create the agenda, and we do tier 1 and tier 2 dialogue and negotiations, and we go through this process of truth and justice, truth and reconciliation. We cannot have that reconciliation without that word justice coming over. The government of Cameroon needs to acknowledge that they've hurt the people of Cameroon and they genuinely want to transition to peace, where people will not be locked up for their voices or for just having an opinion. And they say, okay, we are giving guarantees, international guarantees, that if these political leaders, activists, civil society leaders, economic operators, community leaders sit on board, we guarantee that we will not imprison them, we will not torture them, their security is guaranteed. And we co-create that agenda of how to transition Cameroon from the Cameroon we know today to a Cameroon that we dream of. Every child, even a 5-year-old, has a vision of the country they want to grow in. Ask them and they will tell you.
All right. Prof, that seemed to be that issue of guaranteeing the safety and, of course, the freedom of participants of such a dialogue. That's what seems to be a little bit difficult, because we've seen even those who protested here, young people who have been arrested and they are being detained, they are being tortured.
Honest negotiations. We have seen different negotiations in different countries. And honest negotiations cannot take place in the lion's den. And Cameroon is currently seen as a lion's den for many people. We've seen people who have returned to Cameroon and have been caught and locked up. We've seen people, even in Cameroon, who just speak against the government and they are caught and locked up. We've seen people who go out to the streets armless and they've been caught and locked up. There are many reprisals, and the potential solution to that is to have secret pre-negotiations, which are secret, closed doors with location undisclosed. They don't have to take place on the soil of Cameroon. Let's say that the Republic of the Gambia or Ghana or South Africa chooses to stand and say, okay, we are going to help you transition. We will host the talks between the government of Cameroon, President-elect Issa Chiroma, and the Anglophones, because Paul Biya is fighting a battle at different fronts. We cannot forget the Anglophone conflict. It is there, it's not going anywhere. So any talk will have to deal with that as well. So if an African leader or a retired African leader chooses to help Cameroon, or the African Union do that, these talks can hold in a different country other than Cameroon. Location may not be disclosed, but the negotiators sit behind closed doors. They have pre-talks, they have enlarged talks until when they can then have enlarged, broad-based dialogue with all the different stakeholders.
Prof, let me just come in there. Do you think that the African Union can really do this? An African Union that congratulates persons who rig their way to power, persons who maintain their grip on power at the expense of thousands of lives, like the Tanzanian president, like presidents of many other African countries?
The African Union has been accused of supporting and maintaining dictators in Africa, and rightly so. It doesn't cancel the mandate of the African Union. We will continue to call them on their mandate, even if they do not obey that mandate. And if they don't obey it, other people will take up that mandate. It's not just the African Union that could do so. A country can do so. Other international governments. This morning we saw the House Foreign Relations make a statement about Cameroon. This morning we also saw a joint statement by the Senate of the United States on Tanzania, calling on United States to review its relations with Tanzania, assuming that we work hard enough diplomatically for the government of the United States to review its relations with Cameroon and call on Cameroon to have this honest dialogue before it can continue diplomatic relations with Cameroon. That will bear pressure on the government of Cameroon to review itself or face the sanctions that can be ensuing. And we know what American sanctions are.
All right, Prof, let's go to the newsstands now, and we're taking a look at what the newspapers reported this week. And when we come back in a short while, you're going to tell us more about what the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations has been doing so far. The main headline on the front page of this issue of the Guardian Post reads, Post-election tension, Biya creates peace, justice and reconciliation committee. The paper says the head of state could use these compatriots of high standing to soothe flaring tempers and mobilize Cameroonians on a path of national renewal. Another issue of the Guardian Post tells its readers that the head of state sends Prime Minister Joseph Dangote on a nationwide appeasement mission, and the median talks about President Paul Biya's special plan for women and youth as highlighted in his policy speech at the 9th swearing-in ceremony. And Cameroon Tribune highlights another turn, making reference to President Paul Biya's new mandate at the helm of the state. According to municipal updates, the failure of the indomitable Lions to qualify for the next World Cup has shattered the Mexico-US illegal migration dreams of many. The paper also reports the Apostolic Nuncio's rededication of the Bamenda Cathedral. Thank you for staying with us. Our guest today, Professor Lilian Lem ATANGA, Chairperson of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations. What has the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation been doing to press forward this agenda of change, a better Cameroon, a transition in Cameroon?
Okay, this 2025, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations has engaged in high-level diplomatic engagements to foster pressure on the government of Cameroon for change, because the armed conflict, for example, in the Northwest has been going on for over 9 years. The Boko Haram is still ongoing. We foresaw these presidential elections and we foresaw the fact that the outcome will be what it is, that nothing will change. We foresaw all of that. So we went out on a diplomatic mission to work with different governments to bear pressure on the government of Cameroon. We trained different Cameroonian diaspora and invited Cameroonians from Cameroon to work with us on strategies for that change. Although we foresaw that that change will not be immediate or through the ballot box, we engaged people from Cameroon. We engaged over 20 diaspora leads, had a 3-day training with them on how to engage members of Congress, diplomats, foreign governments, how to write diplomatic letters, how to advocate for Cameroon, the content of the messaging, how to use the media and social media for that advocacy. And after that training, we went into the US Congress and the US Senate and engaged different diplomats and the State Department as well. We went into the United Nations and different units of the United Nations, went to the UN Security Council and spoke about the situation in Cameroon with them. Unfortunately, all these guys know what Cameroon is and they know the expected outcome, which was the outcome that we all anticipated. However, we cannot think of this as failures because we are seeing statements that are continually coming out and we are working towards resolutions, not just from the US Senate, but also from the United Nations. Hopefully, we are ambitious anyway. That will put Cameroon on the spot for reforms, not just electoral reforms, but democratic transitions. The unfortunate thing that is working against us is that the Trump administration is no longer highlighting human rights abuses and democracy, but is highlighting economic diplomacy. So the new work that the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations is engaging on is to do economic diplomacy and work with people who trade with Cameroon to see how, together with them, we can bear pressure on the government of Cameroon to make reforms so that they can continue trading with Cameroon. So we are doing a lot in the background. It's quiet diplomacy. It's not quick diplomacy, but it's working diplomacy. We have seen some results with statements and actions from members of Congress.
Right, Prof. Before we wrap up this conversation, I want you to look straight in front of you now and see Cameroonians and see the millions of Cameroonians right in front of you listening to you. Send a message across to them.
My heart breaks. This morning, someone asked me, when am I going to see you in Douala? And I'm sad to say that it's difficult for me to say you see me in Douala or Bamenda or Yaoundé or wherever. Because like every other person who speaks out for truth, who speaks out for justice, I am as at risk as you are. But you are the very reason that we are working. You are the very reason we are sleeping. Do not give up. Cameroon is our country, and we will not allow one person or a group of people to take it from us. We will go out to the streets non-violently. We will keep talking until we get the Cameroon we want. And that is not long from now. We reject. I implore on you to join us to continue to reject the government that we did not vote for. Your vote was valid, is still valid, and until we get that valid vote, we are not stopping. Thank you.
All right, so before we go, Professor Lilian Lem ATANGA, you co-authored the book, Legalization of Human Rights in Africa, the Institutionalization of Laws Prohibiting State-Sanctioned Violence and Torture. We'll certainly come back another day to get into the nooks and crannies of this piece. But can you just give us in some few words the main idea running across this book?
Yes, in the book we question that African states, including Cameroon, of course, have ratified so many laws that are against torture and human rights. They've ratified so many protocols, but they continue to use torture and abuse human rights. How does the state sanction torture and human rights? And in the case of Cameroon, we see the terrorism law that is in place that is being used to sanction state torture. State torture has been seen across the board on a daily basis. Every day, we see the state abusing people's human rights and torturing people, using laws that they have put in place that violate the very protocols that they have ratified internationally. So that is what the book is looking at, why there's continued abuse of human rights and torture in Africa, despite the laws that are there against the abuse of human rights and against torture.
Professor, thank you so much.
We co-authored the book with Dr. Vera Minan and Dr. Stacy of, we're all here in the United States, but our hearts are back in Africa.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and the insights you've shared with us today.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Coming up, we bring to you some interviews of the week right now.
It's unfortunate that the Minister of Territorial Administration, who is actually on a mission that I understand is a mission of appeasement, is rather using inflammatory language and derogatory rhetoric that can actually dehumanize even the youths of Cameroon and the individuals, and then this can spur more violence.
If Cameroon is going to change, the vast majority of us would have to change. We are the ones who want that change, and we've got to go for it. So the next steps would be essentially that, shifting the responsibility for arriving at the change we want to those who must be driving the change, the people of Cameroon.
We bringing to you now the perspective of a civil society leader. He calls himself modern nation builder. His name, Musoke Lucas Lyonga, USDP, United Socialist Democratic Party coordinator for the FACO division in the southwest region of the country. Now, you're welcome to the program. Musoke Lucas Lyonga, give us your own perspective of this whole thing about the post-election violence, the post-election protest, the tension in the Republic of Cameroon.
As far as President Biya is a candidate of a presidential election, Minat is President Biya, Elekam is President Biya, and the Constitutional Council itself is President Biya. So I've said President Biya cannot lose a presidential election in Cameroon because he runs the presidential elections. And those who still take the risk to go in to run as candidates should not expect anything different from what has been happening in the past, because the CPDM has always claimed victory of presidential elections. That is why I always tell people, for now that President Biya is still a candidate, is still alive, it will be very difficult for the arms that he has put in place, the entity that he has put in place to run these presidential elections, for them to ever confer this victory to any other person, rather than the person who put them there. That is my own point of view. So whatsoever somebody is doing now, and maybe claiming that you won, and so on, I laugh at that, because the same strategy that the CPDA has used in the past to take presidential victory is the same strategy that they still used in these 2025 elections, and they have still taken the victory. So I encourage other political parties to instead look forward to the upcoming elections that are not presidential elections, the regional elections, the council election, or the municipal elections, and the parliamentary elections. So I don't want to bother myself with what is going on, because we don't even need it. When somebody has shown you his ways and you already know who somebody is, don't pretend as though you don't know that person, who that person is.
So, Cameroonians, other Cameroonians at home and abroad, are bent on fighting for the truth of the ballot box, fighting for change in Cameroon, fighting for what is today qualified as the stolen victory of Issa Chiluma Bakari, president of the Cameroon National Salvation Front. What do you say about this?
Yeah, it's good to be proactive. The electoral code of Cameroon has been contested many times. People have contested the electoral code. As long as the electoral code has not been changed, and it is the same Constitutional Council that is legally authorized to declare results of elections, no other person, even if you have the results from all the polls and you can justify and show them, you are not still qualified to say that you've won. And the law does not even permit you to say that you've won in the case of presidential elections. So there's only one body that has been empowered, competent enough to do that. And all the political leaders who are going in for presidential elections, they know this. So when you already know something, it's either you are not part of it, or you follow the rules that have been laid down, because you contest what you already know exists. Nobody is taken by surprise to the fact that the Constitutional Council is the one that is authorized to declare the final results. So even the word that people use, stolen victory, you can only claim stolen victory if the Constitutional Council says that this victory has been stolen. Any other corner noise goes to nowhere. According to the laid down rules and regulations that governs election, and especially presidential elections, it's different from the other cases where you can get the result at the spot. For presidential elections, they gather everything, There are committees that are involved before it reaches the Constitutional Council that finally declares. So if you think that that procedure is not the best and it doesn't suit you, then you should not even get yourself involved. That's why so many people have said that they will not get themselves involved into presidential election unless the current electoral code is changed, is revised, and put independent bodies in place to run the elections. That is when they will ever say that they wish to stand for a presidential election. But as long as the current code is still available, is still in force, many have said they don't want to waste their time and resources in the name of standing for a presidential election. So that is why I say that we should not fight what we ourselves have supported and defended in the past. And it has proven to have its ways. And that is how it has always operated. It has always given the presidential victory to one candidate. And that candidate still took it again this time around. So no Cameroonian was surprised.
So the question many will be asking now is why are you people at the level of the United Socialist Democratic Party turning the page so quickly and looking or projecting into the forthcoming municipal and legislative elections that should be coming up early next year, so quick, so fast, and you've already started groundworks several months or months ahead of those elections?
Other elections, the results are declared at the spot. They are noonday. So there is no procedure to carry it again through the long process. So people already get the result. People already know who has won at the spot. So then now it's better because that procedure of rigging and so on, parties have already worked out a way to overcome it by putting enough persons to be able to observe what is going on. And at the end, when the counting is done, their representatives are present in all the pools. So they get the result, and the result is declared. So that one does not really have much of a problem. Where the problem is found is the procedure or the process that leads to the declaration of the presidential winner. That is where the problem is found. But the problem is not found in these other elections because measures are put in place so that the rigging should not work. Or even if they have come to rig, it will not work because the representatives of other political parties are present. They are at the spot. They are in all the polling stations, and that result does not go elsewhere. The result is known, and the winner is known that same day.
Right. So, and you're looking forward to grab some municipalities at the level of the Boya municipality, for example, where you're going in for the position of the mayor of the municipality and the positions at the level of the National Assembly. Do you think that with the current situation of the country, with the current situation of the electoral system, you can make it through with this system?
Well, actually, it's a strategy put in place by the president of the USDP, United Socialist Democratic Party, Prince Ekoso. You know, he is a political experienced person, so he thought it wise that we should start early enough. So we give credit to him for mobilizing us to start mobilizing Cameroonians towards the upcoming elections. And the first thing that we are doing, and which we are calling upon all Cameroonian youths, mobilizing all Cameroonian youth and women and the men to register massively when they will reopen the electoral registers again, because it will still be reopened. It's reopened every January, so it will still be reopened for Cameroonians to register. So those who have not yet registered, we are encouraging them to massively register for the upcoming elections so that they will also vote and select the candidate. And I, for one, I wish to say that I am also going in as a candidate this time around. I am the coordinator of the USDP party, the United Socialist Democratic Party, in FACO division in the Southwest region. So we are working hard to make sure that we grasp as many seats as possible in the parliamentary elections, and we also grasp as many councils as possible in the municipal election. And to just let the public know, I am standing for the position of the next mayor of the Boya municipality, the Boya council. We are going to take the council, and most of the people who already know me, I'm a nation builder, I'm a community developer. We have done a lot of work, and we wish to take over the Boya council so that we can bring in innovations and new ideologies to rebuild Boya. If we can make Boya, there's a lot of, there are so many challenges in Boya today. We have what it takes. We have the strategy to rebuild Boya. So we are not hiding our desire. We are calling upon the population of Boya to stand with us as the USDP party, as a young party that has in mind to bring something new, especially in the life of the youth, the women, so that we can rebuild Boya, rebuild FACO, rebuild Cameroon as a whole. We have a burden for this nation, and we wish to start at least from a certain point. So the Boya people should be happy that some of us are coming into the political scene today to bring development in the community of Boya, FACO, and why not Cameroon as large, as nation builders and community developers.
Thank you so much, Museke Lucas Lionga, for joining us today from the Southwest Regional Capital, Boya. Now, coming up, we are taking a critical look at how democracy is practiced in many African countries. And our next guest, Nelson Afrizo, says the democratic pyramid has been inverted in Africa, or better still, in many of the African countries where democratic values are trampled upon. We are looking at this with Nelson Afrizo, and he is a passionate social entrepreneur and educator renowned for his ability to explain complex topics in a simple, accessible manner. His dedication to inspiring and connecting with others has earned him the nickname the man with boundless knowledge, and he has received recognition for his leadership, including a certificate of appreciation from the Association of Business Executives in the United Kingdom and an honorary doctorate in peace, advocacy, and conflict management from Dayspring Christian University, USA. Additionally, he was honored with a Decade of Service Award from the Hagai International Institute for Advanced Leadership Training, headquartered in the United States of America. He is the author of The Inverted Pyramid of African Democracy, a call for true progress. You are the author of the book, The Inverted Pyramid of African Democracy. But before we get into the book, let's talk about the way power is managed in Africa today, the way the leaders go about the leadership role that is entrusted into their hands by the people. I mean by the people, of course, in situations where the people actually voted their leaders, because we know that there are many situations where the leaders are not even voted by the people. However, what is your take on the way African leaders are going about their duties of managing public affairs?
That's a very interesting question. As far as the idea of leadership is concerned, we say leadership is influence. Influence about what? Going to achieve positive goals for your community, for your organization, or your government. So there is a difference between leadership and rulership. As far as Africa is concerned, we have leaders who are actually rulers. Because when you talk about leadership, the influence has to be to achieve particular goals. It has to be about the people of the organization. the goals of the organization, and so on. But in Africa, what we have in the majority of the countries is rulership or autocracy or authoritarianism that is disguised as democracy, where we have elections, we have some kind of things that appear to be like democracy, but in the actual sense of it, it's not democracy, it's autocracy that we have in our African continent. So when we have leaders are people who care about generational role. They care about the next generation and not the next election. So that's the major difference with many of our leaders in Africa. What happens is that they are so concerned about staying in power, so concerned about the next election, how they will continue to stay in power. But a leader who knows that he has to work for the betterment of not just the people that he is leading over, but also the next generation. So rulership is about concern about power, the next election. Meanwhile, leadership is about you doing a transgenerational change. Many African leaders
impacting the people's life.
Yes, impacting the people's life. Many African leaders, their concern is about holding power, control over the people. So it's not actually leadership per se, it's rulership that we have in Africa.
So is that the cause of the many vices that we are seeing almost across the continent? Vices like election malpractices, yes, fraud, rigging, corruption, embezzlement, mismanagement of public funds?
One of the authorities of leadership called John Maxwell, he says everything rise and fall on leadership. So there are many factors that could be responsible for some of the things that we are experiencing in Africa. But leadership is key. Like one particular issue is what we inherited from our colonies. We inherited organizations from our colonies, but
from the
colonial masters, no major changes were made. It was just change of maybe different faces, maybe from foreigners to our own indigenes, but no major difference was made as far as leadership in Africa is concerned.
Right. So now, looking at the poor socio-economic and even security situation of many African countries, Cameroon inclusive, with poverty, misery, hardship, a good chunk of the population unable to afford 3 square meals a day, unable to treat themselves, unable to have potable water, unable to have energy, with a lot of conflicts here and there. Does that flow from the problem of leadership, the poor, I don't know if it's poor understanding or poor implementation? Because the question sometimes is whether they don't know or they know and they refuse to do what they know.
Okay, for stuff that concern how people live is multifaceted. There are many other aspects. It's a complex thing to deal with. But again, leadership is key to the whole stuff. Because if you have leaders who care about the well-being of the people, who care about the very basic needs of survival, food, clothing, security, and so on, we are going to have a better society. Because as far as issues are concerned, in Africa, about a good part of the population in Africa live below poverty line, below $2 a day. You understand? If somebody is that poor, struggling to survive, it's going to be difficult for that particular individual to want to think about ideas like democracy, want to think about what's happening or ideologies about the country. The person will be involved in everyday struggling to try to survive. And when people are only trying to survive, what happens is that democracy becomes a secondary need. They think their voices don't matter when it comes to democracy. So those are some of the issues that we need to tackle before seeing whether democracy can actually work in our community or in our country.
Now, in your book, the inverted pyramid of African democracy, first of all, why inverted pyramid?
Let's take democracy. Picture a normal pyramid. You see the bottom is very large, while the top is narrow. That's what democracy is about. The bottom talks about the citizen. The bottom talks about the citizen of the country who give their vote or their voice to people at the top, to the few at the top, to govern them. You understand? That's the normal flow of democracy. The citizens are at the bottom of the pyramid. They give their votes for a few people to rule over them. That's how a healthy democracy happens. But in an inverted pyramid, power actually comes from the top to the bottom. Meanwhile, let's take in Cameroon, in many other African countries, people don't vote. There is what they call voter apathy. Take Cameroon, for instance. Cameroon is, the recent projection says that Cameroon is about 30 million people. Keep children aside, or people who are below 18 aside. Cameroon should have at least 15 or 14,000.
14 million?
Yeah, 14 million eligible voters. But you see, among all the efforts that was done, they managed to get 8 million people. 8 million people registered. Then when you come to the elections proper, just about 4 million people also voted, because many of them, they think that their vote is a waste of time. Their votes don't count. As far as the inverted pyramid of African democracy is concerned, I used Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I explained what a healthy democracy should be. I inverted the pyramid. I explained the realities of African democracy, where instead of power leaving the people and going to the top, power is instead coming from the top and to the bottom. So many people think that their vote, which is their voice, does not matter. So because some of them go around trying to check media, those very basic needs that they want to meet. Take for instance, if you go to Limber Market or all the markets around, you will see people there who are very busy every day looking for survival needs. If you talk to them about democracy, they say, no, democracy is not important. To them, democracy is a secondary need. Because of what? Poverty. When people are so poor, what they are concerned about is their personal survival.
What's the difference between democracy and African democracy?
Okay. When we talk about African democracy, we're talking of the inverted democracy, because democracy says that a government for the people, by the people, and for the people. That's what a healthy democracy has to look like. But in Africa, I say it is inverted, because it's no longer a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Because through your vote, you give your authority for people to make decisions for you. But actually, what is happening in an inverted pyramid is that authority comes from the top to the bottom, instead from the bottom to the top.
Now take us through the major ideas running through the inverted pyramid of African democracy, the book that you've written.
Picture a healthy democracy. In a healthy democracy, power leaves the people to the top. But in an inverted pyramid, what happens is that power actually leaves from the top to the bottom. And the major idea that we find in this book is the aspect of the fact that until our basic human needs are met, democracy will find it difficult to take root in Africa. What we have there is autocracy disguised as democracy. Take for instance, in countries like in the Western countries like Denmark, Finland, the United States, many of those countries, you see that some of those very basic survival needs have been met by the system. That's why if you talk to people about democracy there, which according to Maslow's hierarchy of need, democracy is a secondary need. When those basic human needs are met, that's when you will talk to people about democracy, and they will listen to you and they want to talk about ideas. I used Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That talks about 5 different levels of human motivation. It talks about the physiological needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Then the next one is about security. The next one now, it talks about esteem needs. The second one I talk about love and belonging. After love and belonging, you talk about esteem needs, then self-actualization. So security is key for a healthy democracy. As a matter of fact, security is key for a healthy democracy. But in our African context, what happens is that a good part of our society, like in Cameroon, we have the Boko Haram in the north, you have the Anglophone crisis, and the east, some of the things around the eastern region. When democracy is not, when security is not, where there's no security, it's going to be difficult for democracy to pick up. Okay, like take for instance, in the southwest and northwest, a lot of people, southwest has about, if my numbers are right, about 450-something thousand registered voters, but very few of them came out to vote because the security is not there. The northwest region too the same. Very few came out to vote because the security is not there. So until those very basic, it's a major hindrance to democracy. So until those very basic needs are met, including security, democracy is going to be very difficult to take root. So after that now, I invented the pyramids. I explained lots of other things. Then some other examples about nations that are, or nations and leaders. Like you have Idi Amin, Robert Mugabe, and all of that. We analyzed their society as a perfect example of an inverted pyramid. So the book also goes ahead. It's not just a critique. It's also a roadmap, on how we can flip the pyramid. Because now, actually, in Africa, vast majority of African countries, except for a nation like Ghana, Botswana, and South Africa, but for those few, the rest, they are operating under what is called, what I describe as the inverted pyramid of African democracy. So for it to be resolved, we have to flip the pyramid, bring it to stand back at the normal, where power actually leaves from the citizen and goes back. Power actually leaves from the citizens and to the top, to the few people that are elected to govern the people. So we have other ideas about the book, civic responsibility and engagement. It's a very important topic because a lot of us as Cameroonians, as Africans, we don't seriously engage in political issues. We stay aside, we complain. Only 8 million people registered to vote in Cameroon. 4 million finally voted. The vast majority will stay and complain without doing anything. So we also have the aspect of checks and balances to build a stable society, like in Cameroon and many other countries. There's no clear-cut independence between the executive, the parliamentary, and the judiciary. You understand? So that one too. Yeah, that's separation of power. That one too is another key aspect that has to be looked at. Then the aspect of accountability, because in a healthy democracy, the leadership, they are accountable to the people, the citizens. But in an inverted pyramid, there's no such thing as accountability, because they control the power. Like in Cameroon, we hear about what they call higher instructions. When you hear about higher instructions, that's power. That higher instruction idea in Cameroon to the best of my understanding, it bypasses the constitution, bypasses a lot of other things. That's a typical example. Yes.
We are also driving through the idea that democracy is not just about hunting power, getting the power, and holding tight to the power. It's much more than that.
It's much more than that. As far as democracy is concerned, democracy has to be inclusive. Democracy has to be. In a democracy, you have inclusivity, get people involved. You have transparency and accountability. But in Africa, what happens is that you see a nation, and you see all the symbolism of democracy. You see elections, you see a parliament, you see an executive, you see all of those things. But actually, what happens is autocracy that is disguised as democracy. As far as the inverted pyramid of African democracy is concerned, it's a book that provides not just a critique of the reality of African democracy, but also a roadmap. As a matter of fact, for Africa to be African democracy to stand, we have to flip the pyramid to come back to the normal aspect of democracy, where power lives from the bottom to the top, and not from the top to the bottom.
We see that because of poor governance, there are conflicts that are erupting here and there. So, how will the implementation of these ideas, because you're not just painting the bad situation in the inverted pyramid, but you are suggesting the way out of that to a better situation. Now, how will that influence the peace process? Because we hear a lot of people talking about peace, but what they are doing is contrary to the message of peace.
There is an intrinsic relationship between good governance, development, and peace. Where there is bad governance, it will come down to conflict. So that relationship is always there. That's why you see people are fighting for political power, fighting to be in leadership, because they think that when you are in political leadership, that's when you have the ability to make the right decision that will come to peace. And when people, they say the hungry man is an angry man. When people are well fed, their basic needs are met, you hardly hear about conflict. Check all the conflicts around Africa is because of what? There are many other reasons, but one of them is basic needs. Like in Cameroon in 2008, what happened? People went on strike because of bread. In many other countries, people are going to strike, and then even the Arab Spring started because of hunger. You understand, and many other stuff. So there is an intrinsic relationship between good governance or leadership, development, progress, and peace. Because leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership. When the leadership is good, people will have development. And when people have development and money in their pocket and their basic needs are met, peace will obtain. And vice versa. When you have bad governance, democracy, when you have bad governance, there will be stagnation in terms of development, frustration. And, yes, and when people are frustrated, there can't be peace.
That's it for this edition of The Insight. Thank you for staying with us. God bless Cameroon. God bless Africa. Goodbye.